All right, we're just getting the recording started, and you can go ahead, Kat.
Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the teleconference. My name is Kat Sheely, and I am at CDC in Atlanta. And before we get started with the real reason that you're here today, I wanted to give you just a quick update that relates to why we have the presentation that we have today. And that is that after a long labor with periodic failure to progress, we finally had a single delivery of the mPINC benchmark reports from the 2009 survey. And so if you have been getting questions from folks, you probably have been getting for a long time of whether they were out. Yes, they finally are out. They were started mailing on April 30th. And we mailed 15,796 copies of 2,673 unique benchmark reports, if anyone ever asks. And we just wanted to make sure that everyone knew that they were out. And also that you may remember from the previous iteration of the survey that we sent 6 copies of the report to each hospital that participated and 4 copies to each freestanding birth center. And there's a one-pager about the benchmark reports on the mPINC website, cdc.gov/mPINC, that explains what they are, what the content is, who they went to, that you can download and share with your friends. But also to let you know a couple of different things. So one, if someone can't find their benchmark report, they can look at who those 6 people were that should have received it and hound them and ask them if they know where it is. You also can try and figure out by talking with these folks whether that facility actually completed the mPINC survey. And we've been helping hospitals through some of that sleuthing. So if after many efforts people still aren't able to find them, you can send an email to mPINC, M as in maternity, practices infant nutrition care, at cdc.gov, and we will try and help triage your sleuthing efforts to connect people. We'll talk probably at some point in the future a little more detail about some actions that you can take using the benchmark reports, but a really great example of leveraging the mPINC data to really inspire some tremendous change is the story that Bobby Philipp is part of the story that Bobby Philipp is going to be sharing with us today. And so that was why we wanted to kind of tack that on to the front as a teaser. Bobby, if you don't know of her yet, you need to start learning about her, because Bobby is one of the really incredible people who has just inspired all kinds of activity around the country about baby friendly. She's a professor of pediatrics at BU School of Medicine, Boston University School of Medicine, and she's also the director of the newborn unit at Boston Medical Center, which is a safety net hospital in Boston with about 500 births a year, and has been baby friendly since 1999, and really defies all of the rationalizations that people like to give about why their hospital is not baby friendly. And it's very authentically true that if BMC can do it, so can you. So today Bobby's actually going to share her story about how she has really been helping leverage some tremendous change across the state of Massachusetts, and we're really thrilled to be able to share that story with you today. So go ahead, Bobby.
Kat, thanks very, very much, and I want to thank the CDC and the U.S. Breastfeeding Committee for asking me to talk today and share this story. And I just have to share with you, I'm talking from my office in Boston to a computer, so if any of my colleagues come in, they might think I'm somewhat crazy. But thanks very much for this. Okay, so if you can move the first slide, and I'm happy that you're all out there. So I'm going to share with you how the idea to having a statewide summit came up. And I'm going to assume that this is working if I don't get a phone call on my desk. So I'll just keep going. So the summit idea, the next slide, the next one, press it again, please. So I personally have spent years and years of being asked to and speaking at conferences about optimal feeding, about breastfeeding. Press the next one. And my audiences were mostly lactation consultants. Next one. And for sure, I love them dearly. They're incredibly passionate, incredibly compassionate, incredibly hardworking, and absolutely, positively terrific. Next one. they taught me everything that I know about lactation. And so sometimes I would be speaking and I would think, what in the world am I teaching them and why are they sitting there? And I came to find out that while they're absolutely terrific, they actually carried little power in hospitals, the way that the hospital structure and hierarchy was set up. Next one. So in essence, for years and years, I felt like I was doing a lot of talking, but there was basically little action taking place in our state. And I came to the conclusion one day after doing this that I simply personally couldn't do this anymore because I thought it was a waste of time. So the next slide. So I came up with this idea. I like to do a lot of swimming, and one day I was swimming, and I thought, what if we were to hold a conference and we were to only invite the power brokers? Next one. By that I meant invite the people who actually have the power to make change in a hospital, but these are the people who really should be sitting in the audience, not the choir. These are the people who should be sitting in the audience. They either don't know anything about the topic or they have little time or little interest in the topic. And what if we made it really hard to get into this conference? So we made it by invitation only, and we would basically send each maternity facility in the state 5 tickets to attend. Next one. And the only people that could come would be people with power, so the vice president of nursing, the director of maternal child health, nurse managers, physician directors, vice presidents of quality. And as controversial as it may seem, we wouldn't invite the choir. No lactation consultants would be allowed because we didn't want to waste their time, and they already knew all this stuff anyway. So the next one. But then what if no one attended? Because this was years ago, and you know, it was I believe times are changing now, but 3-4 years ago, you know, I would say the words breastfeeding, and my colleagues would roll their eyes. People would stand up and walk out of the room. So it wasn't getting as much attention then as it is now. So there was a real concern that we had. What if we did this day-long teaching session and absolutely no one showed up? Next one. And then what if, next, what if they find out it's about breastfeeding, next, and then they really won't come? So those were our concerns when we set this up. So as Dilbert likes to remind us all the time, change is great, and Dilbert says, you go first. Next one. So we did. In the state of Massachusetts, we went first, and we held our first MotherBaby Summit. The title that we gave it was Understanding Your mPINC Score. Next. It started in April 2009. The conference room we used was in Lowell General Hospital. They were very, very kind. They didn't charge us for the room, or they didn't charge us for any AV equipment because we really didn't have very much money to run this. There was no fee for any of the invitees to come. They could come for free, but we didn't have any CERPs or any sort of continuing education things to entice them. Our costs for the day were to feed people breakfast and lunch, and then we had enough money to pay for one speaker. Next. And for our first summit, we didn't have an email list at all, so we used U.S. Postal Service, and we mailed things out, paid for that, and Xeroxing was on my boss's tab. Next. And this was paid for private funds, and it was basically pretty cheap. Next one. So the goals of the day were we're going to try to lay the foundation of the public health behind breastfeeding, basically. And we were going to talk about this thing called mPINC because this was April 2009, and despite the fact that the first survey was done in 2007, most of the people in the audience had no idea what mPINC was. We're going to try to get as many power brokers from the state to come as possible. And one of our main goals, we wanted to become the first state to ban the bags, the baby bags given to the hospitals by the formula company. And one of our major, major goals, and this is how basic we were at, was to figure out the absolutely burning question which no one could answer. And that question was, okay guys, how many maternity facilities are there in our state? Because not even the state knew. Nobody knew this. Does anybody know? Next one. So I want to give full credit to the planning committee for our first summit, and you can see the people's names there. Next. Next. So here's a picture of our planning committee. Hit it again, and you're going to see an arrow. Because the name of it was Understanding Your mPINC Score, we made up pink T-shirts that said mPINC on the front, and then hit the next. What next? We had the name tags in pink. Weren't we cute? So that was our planning committee for the first summit. Next. My administrative assistant was kind enough to help us out with administrative tax. tasks. And one really important thing that we did right from the get-go is we really tried to get officials from the state of Massachusetts, Department of Public Health officials, to come, and they certainly did in full force. We're very fortunate to have the medical director of the Department of Public Health come and start us off. She welcomed everyone to the summit. Next. We were very happy that Larry Grummer-Strawn agreed to speak, and this is a picture of him speaking. I don't think many people in the audience knew who Larry was and his importance, but they got to know that. This is a picture of some of our organizing committee. Next. And for this summit, we actually had 80 attendees who came, and of that 80, 6 were officials from the state. And that's a picture of some of them. Next. I've laid out here for you the agenda. I want to tell you we really didn't know what we were doing when we did this. So we basically said, well, let's do a public health framework, and then you can hit it again. You'll see the arrow right there. That was Larry Grummer-Strawn's talk, which is really the keynote of this day. He laid out for us thinking behind the mPINC survey, the different sections, some of the scores from around the country. And it was a very, very, very interesting talk. And then at the end, we had a couple of workshops on how to ban the bags and how to use QI to try to address change, and we concluded with a town hall. And that was our first summit. Next. What we did not say, we really made a concerted effort not to say the word breastfeeding, because at the time we thought if we said this is a breastfeeding conference, people wouldn't come, especially the higher level power brokers. Next. And who did we anger in our first summit? Next. Well, we certainly angered my lactation consultant colleagues because they couldn't believe we were having a conference and we weren't inviting them. Next. Our evaluations for the day were glowing. I especially wanted to congratulate you on a wonderful day. Every talk was excellent, helpful, inspiring. I'm bursting with enthusiasm. Next. What a wonderful day. You should be so proud of what you accomplished. Next. I wanted to let you know that at our local coalition meeting this morning, lactation consultants from 2 hospitals said that the MotherBaby Summit event made a big impression on the people who attended. One said she was shocked at how much it changed her nurse manager's perspective. And that was our goal. And then finally, this was from an official from the Mass Department of Public Health. I want to congratulate you again on a very successful summit. So we felt on the evaluations, we also did Likert scales of, how much did you like to talk, did you learn, that it was a very successful day. Next one. So we said the next year, let's do MotherBaby Summit 2, and we called this one Infant Feeding Narrowing the Gap. We still didn't put breastfeeding in there. It was held in April of 2010. Next. You can just go through these, Megan. Again, it was at the same hospital, Lowell General Hospital. Again, there was no fee for the people who came, and we paid for their food. You got to move an army on their stomach. This time we had the same private funder, and then also the W.K. Kellogg Foundation put some money in to help us with it. And again, we had the same format in terms of the power brokers. And again, no LCs were allowed. And we had a little less anger from the LC community this time because the feedback was it seemed to be helpful in their everyday job situation if their bosses had gone to the summit. Next. So MotherBaby Summit 2, the agenda, we laid the foundation again. This time we tried a little something different. We were able to find staff from maternity facilities, and this took a great deal of persuasion because people didn't really want to stand up in there and talk. And we found people who had success with each of the 7 mPINC sections. So, for example, there was a nurse manager who talked about their facility's success in eliminating pacifiers. Mary Foley from Melrose Wakefield talked about their success in getting rooming in. This was a little dicey because literally up to about a week before the meeting, the summit, we didn't know who was going to talk. So that was a little tricky. We also had a talk, and this was a big seller. And this one, we had a talk about how to get your rates for the Joint Commission because it had just been announced that the Joint Commission was going to want people's exclusive breastfeeding rates from the perinatal core measure set. So that talk was a big seller. Next. And again, we had the town hall at the end. Next. So this is a picture of the agenda. On the right-hand side, you can see the speakers from various hospitals. And again, each person was asked to talk about a section of mPINC. So one of our goals was to teach people, keep teaching people about what mPINC was, and then share success of what people were doing in the state. Next. Again, I want to give full credit to the planning committee for the summit, so you can see that these are the folks that helped make the summit happen. And the evaluations were great. I had several aha moments, thanks a million. I love the format with other hospitals presenting. Empowering, great, I will return, very inspiring. Helpful, thank you, excellent program. The summit has really opened my eyes. Change will definitely be coming. And remember who's writing these evaluations. These are nurse managers, directors of maternal child health, quality improvement people. Next. After the second summit, Roger Edgeworth worked on some things. He presented a workshop at the American Public Health Association meeting, and he and I wrote up an article about the summits so far, those two summits, and it was accepted in the Journal of Human Lactation. Next. So we recently have had our third summit. Now things have changed a little bit with this third summit. So we called it Change the State, if you get that. It was held recently in April 2011. We moved the venue. We held it at a much bigger place, more centrally located in the state, because we felt pretty confident we were going to get at least 100 people to come. So we held it at the Crown Plaza in Natick, Mass., which is kind of in the middle of the state, a little more on the eastern side, but a little bit. Again, there were 5 invites, but this time we had 1 lactation consultant from each site to attend. It was sponsored by our same 2 funders. And this time it proved to be much, much more expensive because we had to pay for the room, we had to pay for the food at the hotel rates, and we had to pay for all the audio-visual equipment. We initially booked the space, and we had to move to a bigger space twice based on the number of people coming. And for summit number 3, we actually had to close registration 1 week before the event because we could not fit any more people in this room. Next. And looking back on it, it's a great thing when you close registration because it makes it people really want to attend. For MotherBaby Summit 3, we didn't use U.S. Postal Service. By this point, we have generated an incredibly awesome email list for all the maternity staff in the state. So we sent all of our invitations, confirmations, directions, everything was done by email. Next. For this summit, we also started a web page, which I would encourage you to all go to. We've put all kinds of resources on this. The link is www.motherbabysummit. It's all one word, .com. Next. You'll see if you go there, we've actually posted talks from the summit. We've posted a lot of information. We hope it serves for our state and anyone else as a resource site for all of this information. So it has information about what the Joint Commission wants. It has information about baby friendly. And we started to generate simple lists for our state. So we have a list on this website that says the following 38 facilities have banned the bags. The following 11 facilities have not banned the bags. And people have told us that they simply are going to ban the bags just to get off the bad list. Next. And we started to give out a monthly award. There's a lot of people in our state that are doing a lot of great things. And so the MotherBaby crew, that's what we call ourselves, we recognize people who are doing great things. So for example, we recognized Toby Hospital in Wareham, Massachusetts for their efforts in keeping babies skin to skin after C-section. And we actually generate an award and we send a press release to the hospital. And in many cases, these press releases have been recognized by the CEOs of the hospital. They've had parties for getting this award. It's been quite interesting. Next. The agenda for MotherBaby, again, I gave the same foundation talk. I would think people would be definitely sick of it by now, but it got good reviews. This time, we asked 6 people from hospitals in the state who are doing great things to stand up and talk about their experience. We had one person who talked about delaying the bath. We had another person, again, talk about ban the bags. We talked about pacifiers, skin-to-skin after C-section, and rooming in. Next. I tried something new, which we do here in our teaching facility, where we give a teaching session in 20 minutes. It was called Medications in Mother's Milk, and it received rave reviews. Next. And then we, again, gave the exclusive breastfeeding talk to help people with the Joint Commission. Next. And again, we had our town hall. We started something new this year. So when people actually registered for the summit, they were given a box that they had to fill in or they couldn't register, where we said, we want to know what you're doing at your hospital. So please tell us. And It was amazing the things people are doing. So this is an example of what Brockton Hospital sent in, which is a wonderful maternity facility on the south part of Massachusetts. And these were all of the things that they said that they've been working on. And for the summit, we actually had, I think it was an 8 or 9 page paper volume where we passed it out and said, look what all of you guys are doing. Again, the whole idea is to celebrate success. Next one. We had some special guests to MotherBaby Summit. The state of Rhode Island asked if they could come, and we were really, really happy to have them. So I believe it was 7 maternity facilities from Rhode Island came as our guests. And Suzanne Haynes from the Office of Women's Health asked me if West Virginia could send 2 people, and we were very, very happy to have them come as well. Next. What got their attention this year? I really think it was the Joint Commission all of a sudden wanted to know exclusive breastfeeding rates, so they wanted to understand what that meant, and they want to know how to get the rates, which we talked about. And the bottom line of the whole thing was we said, okay, we know your rates, get your rates. We know they're going to be lousy because most people's are lousy. And then when you need to improve your exclusive rates, then work to improve your mPINC score. And people now know what an mPINC score is and what that means. So here's some pictures from the 3rd summit. This is the welcoming sign. We were in this big Crown Plaza Hotel this year. You can just roll these slowly, Megan. This was our check-in crew. That's Jesse and Lauren and Merdell. They checked in everybody. This was the food this year. We're getting pretty fancy this year. And this was our crowd at the MotherBaby Summit 3. That's looking from the podium into the audience. These are staff from Falmouth Hospital explaining to the audience how they were able to finally ban the bags. Next one. One of the big things we got was people said, we want to know our mPINC score, and they hadn't gotten any news. So I taught our 2 student interns how to score it, and we scored it for people who brought their mPINC score to us confidentially. We did it very confidentially. We handed it back in sealed envelopes, and we said to them, this may not be right. We're just taking our best guess, and we scored it for them. And every year we have a map of our state where we show where everyone's coming from, and we actually give an award to people that travel the farthest, the people that travel over water. We have awards that we give out, which people like. And the evaluations, again, were glowing. This was great. It makes me feel overwhelmed with all the work to do. Excellent. Love this summit. Congratulations. I'm glad to know where we are at. We have so far to go. You can read through those. Next. Again, I want to give full credit to the full planning committee, myself, Roger Edwards from Northeastern, Genevieve Pereira, physician here at BMC, Jessica Pitsegna, our awesome conference coordinator. And we started something new this year that we're going to continue. We actually have 2 student interns, Laura Soa and Merdell Belazar. I think it's very important for these young folks to attend and understand this topic because they're going to be working in this field for a very long time. So I am actually this year going to suggest that we actually expand our student intern program. Next. So this is probably the most important slide of this whole presentation, and I'm going to stop soon. This is a summary of all 3 of the summits, and you can see how many people attended the first summit in 2009, the second summit in 2010, and then the most recent one. We went from the first summit where I was praying anybody would come, 80 people, to 90 people, and then this year we had 172 people. The number of maternity facilities in our state that were represented in the audience went from 68% to 70% to 92%. The reason that the denominator is 49 instead of 50 in 2011 is one of the maternity facilities in our state closed. We had staff in the audience covering this year 98% of the births in Massachusetts. How many people in the audience were from facilities that had banned the bags? We went from 44% to 54% to 78%. And then for these years, the number of baby-friendly hospitals in our state has gone from 1 to 2 to 3. Next one. I want to say there's a lot of stuff in that last slide, and there are a lot of groups in our state that are working on things, so I want to give full credit all the way around to people doing great stuff. Certainly you all know about how great the Mass Breastfeeding Coalition is. We're very lucky to have Marcia Walker in our state. We have the Ban the Bags organization, www.banthebag.org. My colleague here, Ann Mearwood at BMC, and Baby Friendly is also located in our state. So lessons learned from all of this. For any of you that work in the hospital setting, you know how incredibly hard it is to get hospitals to change. So change is very hard. I really believe that you have to keep working at this, and you got to repeat things a lot. You got to go over things. Like I've given my basic talk 3 times, and people still like it, which I find it hard to believe. And you really have to try different angles. When you do get power brokers that you're talking to, you have to respect their time. They have a lot of things on their plate. They might have 20 minutes or so for breastfeeding. So when you get it, you have to make sure that what you do is very good, and you have to not bore them. And the next one is, is there any more? I really do feel that the Joint Commission has changed everything. It's gotten everyone's attention. Nurse managers now need to have this data. They are now paying attention. Next. And so they have to get their rates somehow. They might need help doing that. And when they get them, if they're like anybody else in this country, their rates are going to stink, because all of our rates stink for exclusivity, most of our rates. And so the main tip is that you can improve them by improving their mPINC score, and then they need to know what the mPINC score is and to work on that. I think that that's it. If you're all still out there, I hope you are.
We are. Thank you, Bobby. That was very informative and very exciting to hear how it's progressed. So I want to remind folks the way we do questions, because of the number of folks that sign into these calls, it's hard to do them verbally, but you do have a little questions box in the screen of your webinar in case you may have accidentally hidden it. Somewhere over on the right side of your screen, there should be a webinar box that has the controls for you as a participant, and that includes a box called questions. If it is minimized right now, you just need to click the plus sign next to the word questions, and it will open that up and allow you to type in questions for us. So I invite everyone to go ahead and type in some questions. I'm going to just take a minute to make it bigger so that I can try to read them better. Let's see. Okay, so I do have a couple of questions while people are typing in their questions for Bobby. A couple of questions about mPINC scores in general, perhaps for cats. So if they have questions about their scores or their reports, would they address that to the mPINC email address, Kat, or what should they do if they have specific questions about their own mPINC scores?
Yeah, the best thing to do is to send an email to mpinc@cdc.gov if it's a specific something. We're starting to work on sort of an FAQ about mPINC scores, so especially if it's a kind of question that people are getting multiple times, just let us know that in the email, because that'll help us know that that's a common question that's coming up. But send it to mpinc@cdc.gov, and you know, in the unlikely event that we end up with extra time at the end of the others, everything else that we've got planned for the rest of our time this afternoon, we could take some now, but I highly doubt that's going to happen.
Okay. I have a question here from Linda Smith. How did you approach the state health department and get the medical director to attend?
That's a great question. How do we approach the Mass Department of Public Health? We, in a variety of ways. We were able to, we had a great contact with the breastfeeding group at the state, and so we were able to get email lists from them and send individual emails. And then I actually, Lauren Smith is a friend of mine. She used to be a pediatrician here at BMC, so I was able to ask her to come, and she was nice enough to do that. But they're very receptive, you know, to doing this. I would encourage people to just contact someone down there.
I have several questions that are very excited and want you to come to them, Bobby. Would it be okay to perhaps give your information to some of these? I know we don't need to address some of these individual ones now, but lots of excitement and happy comments.
Do you want me to give my do you want me to give my email address?
Well, yeah, or however you're comfortable. If that's something some folks are asking if you can come to their hospital or help to mentor their state to do the same, or there might be other folks on your planning team that would be interested in that as well.
So let me do this. Let me give you my email address, and I'll do the best I can with it. So it's ready. It's Bobby, BOBBI, dot Philipp, which is my last name, PHILIPP, at BMC, Boston Medical Center, .org. So it's BOBBI dot PHILIPP at BMC.org.
Awesome, thank you. I have a question from Mary Overfield. What kind of material do you cover about the medications in mother's milk in the Teaching in 20 format?
For the Teaching in 20 talk, I cover the issue about, when a mom's breastfeeding and the mom's taking medication, what often happens is either the mom stops or the doctor says, why don't you, pump and dump for 10 days, but the baby doesn't often get the email, so the baby's supposed to start back up after 10 days. And then we talk about the pharmacokinetic factors and how it's actually determined if the medication gets in the breast milk or gets in the baby. And then we review good resources and bad resources. So we review that the PDR is horrible, that the AAP statement on this is pretty good, but it doesn't stay updated. And then the two great resources are Medication in Mother's Milk, Hale's books, and we review how to use Hale's book. And we also talk about the LactNet. And we have in our hospital, right on our main page, when you pull up email at our hospital, you can get Medication in Mother's Milk. So we've paid for a subscription for that, so I share that with people. And then we do a fun little quiz. Don't bore them. Don't bore your audience. I give them a list of like 20 medications and say, you're the only person in Alaska. Hello, Alaska out there. You're the only person in Alaska. You have to decide, can the mother breastfeed if she's on cocaine, if she's on Vectrum, if she's on Cipro, can she breastfeed? And then they guess before we give the talk. And then after we give the talk, we guess again. I've gone through a lot of the answers, but we also have a lot of Hale's books floating around the audience, and then they can actually look it up.
Here's a question from Margaret Davis. What did you mean when you said town hall?
That's a great question. By town hall, everyone's sitting in the audience, and it's kind of what we're doing now. This is kind of a town hall. They can either write their question down on a piece of paper and we'll go over it, or they can raise their hand and they'll be recognized and we just take their question right there. In a lot of cases at our summit, a hospital would send 5 people, so they would all be sitting at the same table together, and they'd chatting and networking and getting excited, and that table would come up with a question for their site. So it was an hour of just taking questions from the audience. It's very valuable for people to see that the hospital right in the next county is having the same problems as they are. I think in the healthcare environment anyway in our state, it tends to be quite competitive. And I think one thing that the summit has done is kind of broken down those barriers and said, we're all trying to take care of mothers and babies. So in this regard, let's try not to be so competitive and just do a good job. There was a tremendous amount of energy and networking in the room. And so it was more kind of seen as a community than a competitive group is what I would say by the end.
Did you try to gather folks from different backgrounds, especially minority and inner-city safety net hospitals?
The question is, do we try to get people from every single maternity facility from the state was invited. Whether or not they came was up to them. Everybody was invited. So in the end, when we had 172 people there, we pretty much had everybody in the state. And for our last summit, our goal was to get every site there, and we ended up missing it by 4 sites. So we almost made it. But, whoever they said is who came.
Here's an interesting question. How much do you think that the fact that you are an MD and the invite came on BMC letterhead lent to your initial success?
The invite didn't. It's a great, interesting question. The invite did not come from BMC letterhead. The invite came from our, this year, the invite came on an email that was just Gmail, it was at gmail.com. That's our conference coordinator. The only where that it said BMC or my title would be in the faculty or the planning committee. But I will say doctors are basically snobs, and they like to only learn from other doctors. So we have, I think this year we had maybe 15 doctors in the audience. It wasn't an overwhelming number of doctors, but I think we did have maybe 50, maybe 20 physicians in the audience. But you know, if we get one, we'll take one. It was mostly nurse managers and directors. Nursing.
Okay. Were any challenges identified to implementing hospital routines from participants or any negative feedback?
Oh my gosh. That's all we talked about throughout the whole day is, you know, we can't believe that you're able to do skin-to-skin after C-sections because we have blank, and then everyone would be nodding their heads. We have the same problem. We have a union that says you have to have another nurse in the room when the baby comes out, and how you address that. But that was the beauty of the whole day. You know, one hospital was able to try to figure this out. We sat and we listened to them, and then as a group would say, well, maybe we could try to do that, you know. So there were a gazillion challenges identified throughout the day.
Follow-up question, where did you get the VIP names, or how did you get those?
Where did we get the VIP name?
Yes.
What's that mean?
I think I assume they mean of the hospital.
Oh, I see. Where do we go? That's a great question. That is a terrific question. Well, we've done this now for 3 years, and we're building our email list. So the first year we had 80 people come. So we had their emails, and we would then we would try to reach hospitals in a variety of ways. We would send. In many cases, we had emails. We knew who the nurse manager was. We had some ideas of who the people were. Some nights we would sit here and we would call the maternity unit at night, and we would say, hey, we're calling to invite you to a conference. Can you tell us who your nurse manager is? And could you give us her email? And so we would get it that way. We tried a lot of different angles to try to get information. A lot of different ways. You've got to be creative with that.
That's awesome. I have definitely thought of the just randomly calling and playing dumb.
Yeah, just call it nice. I was, and my research, my conference coordinator said it's actually my daughter who is our conference coordinator. She said, Mom, their nurse managers are always there on Fridays. They're in their offices on Fridays. And remember, as we built up more and more goodwill, they were actually calling us. So there was a reverse, and now we have a great email list. Pretty much any hospital in the state, I can contact someone there. We have a great email list. So after the summit, they're sending me emails saying, hey, I had a question about delay of the bath. Can you answer this question? Or hey, I want you to know we banned the bags. Or, hey, just to give you a heads up that we've gotten rid of pacifiers now. Or can you come give a grand round? You know, so we're constantly generating our email list, constantly.
Awesome. Here's a question from Charlene Burnett. Did you have any of the data collectors from the hospital attend, or was it only the upper management?
No data collectors attended, no, not for these. It was only the levels that I showed you, nurse manager, vice presidents, directors, vice presidents of quality. That was pretty much, it's a higher end level in the hierarchy of hospitals.
Okay. Let's see, we're getting a few more here. Would you change the format for a larger state like Texas?
Well, that's a great question. Would we change the format for a larger state? That's a really good question. We have 49 maternity facilities. We gave out 5 invitations to each site. I was having a heart attack on the last summit. 5 times 50 is 250, and our room was going to hold 180, and all of a sudden everybody started saying they were coming. So I don't know how many maternity facilities a state like has.
Yeah,
I don't know. So you have to do the math and see how much your room will hold. Mm-hmm. You might want to do it regionally.
Yeah, that's
regionally, depending if you have a lot of sites.
Fitting into the room, if it's 1,000 people, you'd have a really hard time. But they might be more. They also might. There probably would be more sharing and networking that would happen with a smaller room than with 500 people. I would guess.
Yeah, I don't think we would try to go much more than 200 because the networking and the intimacy of the group and being able to ask questions, raise your hand and say, we're having this problem. Can anyone here help me with this? It's very valuable. I think it's a benefit to us that we're only 49 sites.
Mm-hmm. Let's see. Who else was angry other than the LCs? Was anyone else upset?
Who else was angry? There's a lot of people always angry at me. Let's see. Who else was angry? Well, the LCs were really, excuse my French, but pissed off at me, really mad. And then I kept saying, please, trust me, I think this is going to actually help you. Who else was angry? Well, there were some other people that wanted to come that we just didn't let come, like I can't think of what their designations were, but maybe some community people that wanted to come, which we didn't let come, which we felt badly about. It was really the LCs that were mad. That was a big crowd because they all wanted to come. I didn't blame them. They really wanted to come. They've been working on this for years. It's what they love. They're very passionate. And we held this conference and said, no, you guys can't come because you know too much. It was a very unique approach, let me just say.
Let's see, I'm getting a few more here. We have a couple of different questions about the sponsors and how you got the sponsors involved, or if you have any recommendations for funding. Getting that from a few people.
Sure. So our sponsors, the main sponsor for 3 years has been the Transforming Birth Fund of the New Hampshire Charitable Trust. For my friends out there in New Hampshire, there's a wonderful philanthropic donor who gives money to things that she thinks are important, and I've been very, very fortunate to be recognized by her and that group. And I just found her, through networking. So there are people out there with money who want to support things, and you just got to kind of look around. And then, this is really what W.K. Kellogg is all about, helping. This is right up W.K. Kellogg's alley, and I wrote a grant to them and presented this idea to them, and then I was able to generate a report showing them that we're having some success here, and that's why they did it for the second year, and I'm hoping that they're going to do it again and keep it going. So these are one's a big foundation and another's a private funder, and I just have found them. You just got to look. They're out there. If we have them around here, they're in every state. You just got to look.
Mm-hmm. And I would add to that from the national perspective at USBC, looking for foundations. There are a lot of foundations out there that are community specific or specific to a geographic location, which precludes USBC from applying to them because they want to fund something in your county or your region or state. So I highly recommend the foundation directory website. They have basically a giant directory of all the foundations, and you can find those ones that are looking specifically for things in your area. So that's a great resource.
Yeah, I agree.
I think we can take a couple more. Let's see. There's a couple of questions about OBs. What was the level of participation of OBs in your summit?
Lower than others. I think we maybe had 4 or 5 OBs in the room, but if I can get one, I'll take it. Lower, it's a problem, but I think maybe 4 or 5 were OBs.
Okay.
You got to start somewhere,
Yeah. Let's see. Do you see a role for public health departments in organizing such a summit? And second question, what types of people should be on the planning committee?
Well, definitely, the Department of Public Health could organize it. I think always the question is time and money. Who should be on the committee? Whoever will work. There's a lot of work to be done with this, and whoever will work, I guess.
Any specific types of people that you think should be represented? Like you were saying, perhaps somebody was asking a question about did it have an impact that it came from you as a doctor? Should they make sure that they have a variety of different folks, or?
You know, I think for me personally, I think change happens when you have a group of people that are very passionate about something and they're willing to just keep going. Even if, you know, you get the door slammed in your face, you're just going to keep going because you know you're right. And so the people that were on our planning committees were people that were able to make it happen, whether it was get us a conference room, get us a projector, figure out how to get us the cheapest food we could possibly get, figure out how to Xerox all these things for people, you know, make the name tags. I don't know, you know, change. You need a change agent, which I guess is part of my role, is to serve as a change agent. But there's certainly a lot of people out there that make a lot of things happen.
Mm-hmm. Okay, I'm going to take just one more, and then we have some announcements to do. Had any of the attendees and hospitals already begun the FHI, the baby-friendly process, and did any of the hospitals start the process as a result of the summit?
Oh, for sure. There are several maternity facilities in the state of Massachusetts who had their letters of intent in. They shared with us that. They are continuing. I'm extremely delighted to say that Toby Hospital just became a baby-friendly hospital in our state, and you know, they really did leaps and bounds. But again, there's a lot of people in our state doing a lot of stuff, so this is just one little piece of the pie. But we did not choose to make this a baby-friendly summit because we tried a different angle. The people that we were bringing were coming for a reason, and I think they were coming, nurse managers in particular have a lot of things on their plate. Maternity child health directors have a lot of things on their plate. So when they're told that the Joint Commission wants this data, they then need to know how to get the data, and they need to know how to improve it. So we didn't even say breastfeeding. So we didn't pitch it as baby-friendly. But in my foundation talk for each of the summits, I talk a section of the time about the Baby-Friendly Hospital Initiative, what it is, how you get it, what they're looking at, how many there are in the United States. But that's not the focus of the day.
All right. Well, thanks, everyone. We've had a lot of really good questions. I did see a couple that were asking about if you're willing to share some of the materials that you used at the summits, and I understand that some of that is on the website, correct?
Yeah, I would recommend everybody go to MotherBabySummit.com. There's copies of our talks. There's tabs on the left that will tell you about what is mPINC, what does the Joint Commission want, what's in the bags, what is baby-friendly. There's all kinds of stuff on this website. I think you will find it helpful. I hope you will find it helpful.
And I just wanted to comment. I did see a few questions asking about, what is mPINC and asking some of the basics about mPINC. And we do have another webinar. In fact, I think we have two that we have done in the past about mPINC. So what I will do, and I've seen a couple questions making sure they have spelled your email address correctly, Bobby. What I'll do for those folks who may not have been involved or may not have attended those previous mPINC talks, I'll send out the links so that make those a little bit easier to find. I'll send that out to our proctors and coalition leaders listservs to make sure that everyone knows where to find those. I know, the reports have just come out again, and so that might be a nice refresher for folks of the content that we discussed there, including how to use the reports and how the state coalitions might use them. So great. So thank you so much, Bobby. That was really informative, and I think we've caught most of the questions. We do get a lot of them, so if there's any that we missed, we'll take a look and check with you. So Kat, I'm going to turn it over to you to do CDC announcements first.
Thank you so much, Megan. Carol McGowan and I are the co-leads of the breastfeeding work group here at CDC, and we're going to be giving you just a few quick updates on behalf of Larry Grummerstein, who you saw in the pictures from Bobby's fantastic talk, who is actually currently with Megan in Salt Lake City at the ASPN conference, and he's presenting as part of a training that ASPN is supporting for their state coordinators. So that's something we just want to make sure that everyone knows that that's another sort of arrow in your quiver of advocates you're going to have on all of these issues that we've been talking about, because one of the things he's talking with them quite a bit about is the mPINC survey as well as the call to action. I'm really encouraged to hear that there are people on the call who are asking what is mPINC, because that tells me that we're really starting to reach beyond our own little choir, and that's just really exciting. So if this is something where there's a lot of acronyms and things that you're not really sure about, be sure you keep asking those questions, because that's just phenomenal, and we always want to share this wonderful stuff with more people. So just a few updates from CDC land. First, just a heads up to see if you can take a look at the current issue of Pediatrics. There's a new fantastic meta-analysis from NIH about breastfeeding reduces risk of SIDS. They have some really nice data in there. If you think about how those data are presented in the call to action, if you're familiar with that section of the call to action, the analogous odds ratios that you would see from this new meta-analysis are so a baby who gets no breast milk at all, it has a 2.5 times higher risk of dying from SIDS than a baby who gets any breast milk at all. And they also found that a baby who breastfed for 2 months, so comparing babies who breastfed for 2 months versus didn't, those who did not breastfeed for 2 months are 3.7 times more likely to die of SIDS. So this is pretty tremendous and substantial evidence to be able to present and share with colleagues when this question comes up. It's very nicely written. It's extremely comprehensive. I urge you to go and find it. And then also in that issue, but actually posted on the website, is a series of letters to the editor that have been submitted in response to a commentary that was published on May 23rd about regulatory monitoring of feeding during the birth hospitalization. The most recent addition to that is from our own Kriya Perrine, who's our brilliant epidemiologist here, and the title is The Truth About Exclusive Breastfeeding During the Hospital Stay. And that letter joins a very nice letter from Lori Feldman-Winter and her colleagues at Cooper University Hospital, as well as a extremely comprehensive letter that Kathy Marinelli and Miriam LeBach spearheaded that has been signed by all the cool kids in town, I have to say, and just a really nice resource, as well as then also the very first ones to submit something were the New York State Lactation Consultant Association. So these letters that were submitted are really, they've got some great nuggets to cite when you're talking to colleagues about maternity care practices, about the mPINC survey, about breastfeeding in general. So those are just some 2 heads up for fun leisure reading. Also, heads up, just so you have an idea of what we're planning for World Breastfeeding Week so that you can kind of plan with it. Most of you probably are aware that we, since 2007, have been releasing the breastfeeding report card that has a variety of indicators of how supportive a state is of breastfeeding. The 2011 report card will be released for World Breastfeeding Week, and it will contain the new updated NIS data, so the data about the prevalence of breastfeeding at the various time points that match the Healthy People 2020 goals. Unlike previous years, however, we will not be doing a big splash with the new data on our website. We actually won't be updating the data on our website because there is another new and improved flashier data application that we're working on. So if you are looking for the new NIS data, as you know, the updated data for this year, they're going to be in the report card. And then the other thing that we are planning for World Breastfeeding Week is, as part of our plans for World Breastfeeding Week, we are going to be presenting we have gotten the topic for CDC. So every month, CDC has this monthly major report called Vital Signs. So if you go on CDC's main website, you'll see Vital Signs, and it's a sort of catchy, consumer-friendly, hot topic of the month. They come out every month, and in this August, Vital Signs will be dedicated to maternity support for breastfeeding, maternity care, hospital support for breastfeeding. So be on the lookout for that. It's flashy and cute and graphic-y, and there's going to be a more sort of traditional CDC data report that goes with it as well about mPINC data and things that are going on related to maternity care practices and breastfeeding. And then one more update that Carol was going to share a little bit about the CTG project.
Hi, everyone. Hopefully most of you have heard about the CTG funding opportunity, CTG being Community Transformation Grants. It's a reflection of the direction that CDC is going, which is looking at health and prevention in a more comprehensive way. And these community transformation grants require the applicant to address various, chronic disease prevention and obesity prevention in a comprehensive manner. And the reason I bring it up is this week was the deadline for states, communities, and nonprofit organizations to send in their letters of intent. And we received close to 1,000 letters of intent. We can't fund nearly that many, so it's very, very competitive. So two things are happening. One is the CDC is trying to figure out the best way to post either who submitted a letter of intent or those actual letters of intent, so that if a particular state, State A, for example, had 3 different organizations submit a request for funding, that those 3 organizations or the state and the local health department or community could get together and decide how to actually submit an application, because there won't be multiple funding. There's a good chance that all of those that submitted from one state are not going to get funded. So watch for that. We can't address specific questions about what should be in the grants, but we can encourage you, once you have identified who in your state is applying for these funds, that you should offer yourself, the coalitions, offer yourselves as a resource to help develop the section on breastfeeding, and really remind people that breastfeeding is a very key component in prevention regarding nutrition and physical activity, especially that section of the CTG, or the Community Transformation Grant. And I know Megan had, USBC had a conference call about this with the coalitions to help address some of those questions. There is a website, there is a email to send your comments, and it just went out of my head. It could be CTG at CTG@cdc.gov, to keep it simple. There also is a website. If you do a Google for that, you can look for Community Transformation Grants and then CDC, and you'll find the site that has a description of this. Okay, Kat?
That's all we have from here, Megan.
Megan, you're next.
Do you have a road trip announcement?
I do. Well, I'll talk about I'll try to be very fast because I know we're at 2 o'clock now. But just briefly, a couple of USBC updates in honor of the wonderful theme of World Breastfeeding Week of communication and reaching out to new audiences and using technology. We are going to be relaunching what we have been calling the Coalition's Electronic Forum. We'll be relaunching in a new format and probably be renamed as well. And so this new format is going to, instead of being limited to only 3 logins per state, it will be unlimited, so that as many folks as are interested in logging in from your coalition can get access and share your resources with others, and also see resources from other coalitions and download and be able to use those examples. So we're really excited about this. Please watch for that and do respond when we're asking for more resources and examples from you guys. We really do appreciate your submissions, but we'll be sending more information about how to do that as it launches this summer. Similarly, we're also getting ready to do our second coalition update survey, which doesn't have a very exciting name, but you'll recall we did this for the first time last year and did just some basic data about the coalitions and how they were structured and functioning. So this year, now that we have the call to action as the framework behind us, we're going to be doing a little bit more broad survey of all the wonderful things that you guys are doing. So we're very excited about that. And we're also going to have, rather than just have it be an online survey, have a an in-person, not in-person, a phone interview portion of that, so that we're also able to connect with you and hear from you directly. And so I think that will be very valuable for us to hear from you and to have that connection. So on that note, please do respond as soon as you receive our request and we will be sending that to the 3 leaders per state that we keep on our list, a request of who we should talk with, and then to get that to set up a time. So please do respond to that as quickly as you can. It'll make our process much more efficient. And if you want to start thinking about, if it's 1 or 2 or 3 of you from the state coalition, who would be the ones to be on that? We don't want it to be a large discussion, but a couple of key people that would be the most knowledgeable about all of the things that your state coalition is working on, that would be the ones to do that phone portion of the survey. So that's also very exciting. And as Kat and Carol alluded to, I am in Salt Lake City right now. We're very excited to be piloting a breastfeeding workshop here at the ASAPIN's annual meeting, the State and Territorial Public Health Nutrition Directors. The workshop is called Building Effective Collaboration, Implementation of the Surgeon General's Call to Action. So we're very excited about this. We'll be evaluating how it goes and looking at perhaps ways to incorporate the pieces that work well into maybe some webinar formats, other formats between now and the conference next year. So, and again, I always want to remind folks the next conference is not January. We are switching to summertime so that we don't get snowed out some year. So the next USBC Coalition conference is August 4th through 6th of 2012. We'll keep posting that save the date everywhere as much as we can. And then finally, I'll just mention 2 other very quick things. One is that the Joint Commission is going to be launching a Speak Up campaign for World Breastfeeding Week. So we're very excited about this. We have some of our USBC leaders that are consulting or advising them on the contents of the campaign. This is Joint Commission's sort of consumer outreach campaign where they are to encourage folks to speak up for their health care rights and needs. So we're very excited about this. Watch for more, but if you're interested in learning more about it, just Google, go to the Joint Commission and look for Speak Up campaigns. You can Google that, and you'll be able to find more about what the program is all about. And then finally, the road trip. I know folks have been hearing about this. We did sort of co-host a couple of webinars for coalitions last week with the Milk for Thought team. But yes, it is true. There is a big pink bus that's going to be driving around the country for 6 weeks this summer. It is a program that will be from milkforthought.com. They are sponsoring having this bus go around the country, and then related to that, they will be filming videos. They have actually a professional documentary film crew that's working with them. But the film crew is also going to be on the bus taking videos or creating videos for each of the 20 actions of the Surgeon General's Call to Action. So this is another really exciting opportunity to promote what's going on in the coalitions, what's going on with all of our member organizations and initiatives. So I encourage you to learn more. You can go to www.milkforthought.com, and they do now have a system set up for folks to tell stories about what either your personal stories or stories of great organizations working on breastfeeding. So I encourage you to go check it out and encourage them to come to your town or city. But I know we're running really late, so I won't go into much more detail about that, but you can contact the Milk for Thought folks to learn more. So otherwise, I think we're done for this portion of the call. If you are continuing on for the regional networking calls next, you will need to hang up from this call and dial into numbers. So thank you, everyone. We will post the recording, the archives for this call as soon as possible. So thank you, Bobby and Kat and Carol.
Thank you.
Have a great afternoon.
Have a great afternoon, everyone.